Xcog TV introduces a Bitcoin Bay Meetup with Jed MeCaleb and Anthony Barker. This video was divided into 3 segments. This is part 1.
We go, okay, fine. Bitcoin Bay Street, right there, financial district. So that was the original impetus. And through Bitcoin Bay, the founders have changed, the community aspect, the founders have changed on and off. So the current founders of, and organizers of Bitcoin Bay is Antoine. And Antoine is responsible for currently the Bitcoin Bay Corp's software dev, basically smart contracts, blockchain, and whatnot. The other founder is Alwyn. He's a coin guru, start to finish. Anybody that wants to know about mining from start to finish, talk to him. He was one of the first guys when I got into the space 2013 that kept telling me, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin. Kept beating that in my head, and I didn't buy one. Just joking, I just bought fractional shares. That's fine, right? And we have Jerry. Where's Jerry? He's back there. Jerry does the business dev side of things for us. And I'm one of the other co-founders. My name's Leo. I focus on corporate governance, more so smart contracts on the capital market side. That's my point of interest. And we have basically over the past 2-3 years, we've developed a great team. And I'd like to point some out. Subu, who's our CTO. Edward, who's actually one of the original founders. Went on vacation, came back. He's back, you know. And we have Matthew, who helps us with the biz dev stuff. We have Sasha in Chicago right now. We have Groove. He started off as an intern, but he's more than an intern. And Joanne, she gives us a bit of help on the legal side. And anybody else did I leave out? Okay, yeah. No. The most important person in the room outside of our 2 guests, Mark. If you want to buy crypto, sell crypto, he's the guy you talk to. And he handles all the OTC stuff as well. So depending on size, talk to Mark. All right? So just a little bit of intro. And what we're doing as Bitcoin Bay right now as a corporation is helping grow the community and also helping entrepreneurs start and basically test your use case in the space. So we are looking to work with anybody in the space that wants to work with us and help the space grow. Now, that said, this is how the flow is going to be, I think. Jed is going to speak first. Anthony is going to follow. Yes. All right? We will basically sit down and have a discussion after. And the discussion will be questions back and forth, just a quiet discussion, about 5-10 minutes. Then we will give everybody the chance to ask Jed and Anthony some questions. All right? We know most of you have been waiting long. We have had some technical difficulties, but again, this is an interesting topic, an interesting man that we have here today. So please, Toronto, take advantage of it. And everybody give a big clap for Jed.
Try to stay on this side. The thing is, I also have to just go. All right, cool. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Great to be here. So I don't know, how familiar are people here with Stellar? Do people know what it is at all? Just okay. You're a lucky man. All right. So yeah. So first, I'm just going to give you guys kind of a brief introduction of the motivations for making Stellar and kind of what it is. This is actually a talk I gave a couple years ago in Shanghai, so it could be a little rusty, but I'm going to try to blast through it here. So what Stellar is, it's an internet-level protocol for payments. So I'll kind of go through why that is. I'm going to just go through these things. So the way payments work today, right? So first of all, payments today are really broken. You might think that's not true because it seems frictionless when you're in the same country, but when you're trying to do stuff cross-border or small payments, particularly small payments cross-border, there's a lot of friction, right? So And kind of to kind of walk you through how we got there. Like if we're in the same room and I want to give you money, I can just hand it to you. It's cheap, it's fast, there's no issue, right? If we're at the same financial institution, it's also pretty straightforward. My account gets debited, your account gets credited, the money shows up. It's probably pretty instant. It starts to get more complicated when there are multiple institutions. Maybe they're not on the same network. You know, maybe you use mobile money and I use a bank. And you have to route through these different hops, and that leads to delays and friction, things like this. And it gets even more complicated when I'm holding dollars and you're holding some other currency. Like if I want to send you, Thai baht, then there has to be currency conversion. There's steps in the middle that like sometimes the money is in some currency that neither of you wants to hold, and there's volatility. And then there's even further complications, like if one of these hops in the chain says, no, we can't accept that payment. The payment has to be returned. The way it works, sometimes the money's held up and neither the sender nor the receiver knows where it is in the middle, right? So it's basically this giant mess. And that basically leads to all these delays, increased friction. If you've ever sent money internationally, you know that there's a lot of problems there, right? So is there a way to fix this? So in going about like thinking about how to solve this problem, we kind of look to other similar networks. And so you can kind of take the analogy of email. So back in the early days of computing, basically if I wanted to send you a message and we were using the same mainframe, I could just leave it there. Then when you logged on, you could get it. It was pretty straightforward. It wasn't very complicated. When we were on the same network, it was also pretty straightforward. You know, I would send you the message. It would go to your machine. We're on the same network, so everything works pretty simply. It starts to get more complicated. We're on different networks. You know, they speak different protocols. Maybe there's different operating systems, different file formats, things like that. You would actually have to specify the route through the network that your message would travel. You'd have to know all the hosts in the middle. And then if one of these hosts happened to be offline or dropped, you wouldn't know if your message was delivered reliably or not, right? So it was a big problem. And all this was a giant mess until 1982. Someone came up with the secure mail or simple mail transfer protocol, or SMTP, right? And this made messages open, interoperable. Anyone could use it, and it grew really quickly. And it's had a huge impact on our society, just because SMTP gives this open protocol for communications, right? So now, no matter who's running your mail server, whether it's a university or a business, the messages can go seamlessly to each other, right? So why can't we use the same method for payments, right? So it turns out sending an email message is more straightforward, because if I send you a message, it doesn't matter if I send somebody else the same message. Whereas with a payment, that's a huge problem. If I send you $10, I better not be able to send the same $10 to somebody else, right? And so this is known as the double spend problem, and it's sort of a subset of this second issue. How do you store, or this subset of this first issue, how do you store, prove possession, and transmit value, right? So that's kind of the first thing that you have to be able to do, right? And then you also have to digitally represent existing currencies and assets, right? People want to deal in dollars or euros or Canadian dollars, and all these things need to be representable in the system, right? If you want it to be universal, right? And then once you have these different assets in the system, you need to make sure it's interoperable. It shouldn't matter if I'm holding dollars and I want to transact with somebody that wants to use pesos. Like that should be irrelevant. We should both be able to send and receive from each other, right? And then after you've done all that, you need to make sure your system still scales, right? Because obviously you're building this payment, and payments are used by literally everybody on the planet. So you need to be able to handle billions of people, millions of transactions. So is it possible to solve these problems? And in fact, we didn't actually think it was possible until very recently, until one of these visionary Satoshis gave us Bitcoin, right? And Bitcoin solves the double spend problem, right? So it's an awesome innovation, and all of you are pretty familiar with Bitcoin, so I'll just kind of gloss over this. But essentially what it does is it provides an immutable public record out there on the internet that you can chisel stuff on, and everyone can see that it's true, right? So that's awesome. So Bitcoin solves the first problem, the double spend problem. But you still have these three remaining issues that are not yet solved, right? And so that's what Stellar was set out to do, was solve the three remaining problems. And so how do we do this? So again, you want to digitally represent existing currencies and assets, because it's a big leap to get people to move to some new currency that they're not familiar with. And what this implies is that you need like if you have a digital dollar in the network, what that implies is there needs to be a physical dollar somewhere that is backing that digital dollar, right? So there needs to be money in a vault somewhere that can be redeemed, that this digital dollar can be redeemed for, right? And luckily, we already have institutions to do that, and they're called banks, right? So we have this concept in Stellar called an anchor, and all an anchor does is it accepts some sort of asset from the rest of the world and puts it in its vault or storage or some other, what have you, and issues a token into the Stellar network. So you can do this with dollars, any kind of fiat currency, euros, what have you. You can do it with cryptocurrencies, you can do it with sheep, you can do it with beers, you can do it with anything, right? So all of those anchors just issue these tokens into the Stellar network, right? Great. So now once you have all these different assets into the network, you need a way to make them interoperable across each other, right? So, just because I'm holding dollars, I still want to be able to transact with someone who has Naira, right? And the way that we do this is, since Stellar is just a database, you're allowed to put orders into the network. So it has a distributed exchange built into it. So you can put up an order to buy or sell these digital assets, and then when you want to send money, because somebody has an order saying, buying dollars and selling euros, if I want to send euros or if I want to send dollars to Europe, it goes through this order book and takes that order at the best rate, right? So, and then after that, you want to make sure your system still scales. And one of the ways that we do this is with this. It's like a lot of feedback. One of the ways we do this is with Stellar Consensus Protocol, which is, I'm sure all of you are familiar with mining. Stellar is a different way so everyone to agree on what is written, chiseled on the big rock out there. It's everyone to agree with what is on the public ledger. And so some of the advantages or differences of SCP is it's extremely fast because it doesn't involve mining. It's just message passing. And it's low latency. Transactions take 3 to 5 seconds to confirm. It can do many hundreds of transactions a second. And you also get to choose who you are listening to. So you don't have the situation where there's like some centralized group of miners out there that you might not necessarily want to trust, right? So you get to choose the people out there in the world that you trust. So kind of the details of this I don't want to get into here, but we have a pretty good video by Professor Mazaris, who invented this protocol that you can go on and look at on our website. Happy to show you. But let's see. So again, because what we're trying to do is make it where any financial institution or anyone can use this system, we need this like addressing scheme. So we have this idea called payment addresses, which translate, I'm sure you're all familiar with like Bitcoin addresses and Ethereum addresses and all these things. We have a similar underlying, like basically it's just a public key, but everyday users don't want to use that. So you need some way to map something human readable, and again, it looks a lot like email addresses, to these public keys. And that's what this federated addresses thing is, and we'll show you that in the demo a little bit later. Let's see. And this is kind of it in action. Like you just enter the user's federation address or payment address, the amount you want to send, and it resolves it to the underlying public key. Again, so this is what we're trying to do, is make an open protocol for payments. And very much like email, because it is this open system, we hope it can grow extremely quickly, and like as people adopt it, it gets more and more valuable. And it should allow sort of a internet analog of innovation in the economic realm. So we're pretty excited about that. So I'll just skip the rest of this and maybe turn it over to Anthony to show the demo, or am I going to do the Stellar Term demo now? What do you want to do?
Yeah, we can show with the demo, and then I've got something I want to go over.
Okay, so do you want me to do the Stellar Term thing now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So let me just show you guys a quick, just your web browser. Okay, cool. Not that thing.
Pass me the thing, and
Yeah.
I'll sort of step it up. So what we're going to do here is, it's pretty simple. We're going to do a demo of a payment. So it's going to be a two-step payment. So let me just see a round of hands here. Who here has done a Bitcoin payment before? Okay, almost. It's not. I expect more. This is Bitcoin Bay. Come on. And then who's used a Bitcoin ATM before? Okay, so yeah, Toronto's got a lot of them. Who here has cashed out of a Bitcoin ATM, like the Deloitte one? 2 people. Okay, so how was your experience cashing out? Did you use the Deloitte one? How long did it take? I'll just tell you my experience. So you go to the ATM. There's one at the bottom of the Deloitte building. You kind of show your Bitcoin thing, and you send it to the machine. Because it takes 20, you don't know how long it's going to take to confirm. You then go away for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and they send you an SMS text. And then you can go and get your money. So it's 20 to 30 to 40 minutes later, you can then withdraw your money from the ATM. So it's, if you're used to bank, where you can just sort of pump in your number and you pull out your, now that these new ATMs just have an instant cash, take out $20 now, it's a little bit more involved. That's not to bash Bitcoin. I think it's still great innovation, but the user experience is got left to be, a little bit to be desired. So what we're going to display now is something, if you've just used Bitcoin, you might find interesting. We're going to send money from my wallet. Jed's pulled open a thing called Stellar Term, which is an open source, community-supported trading app, which doesn't keep your private keys. Private keys are kept by yourself. And it's also trading, so it's a way of sending money. It's also a trading app. And I'm going to send money to him, and then he's going to, so it's going to basically, this thing's running, I think, from the US. So we can say I'm sending money from Canada to the US, to the Philippines. Well, to this laptop. Yeah, true. Okay, it is in Canada. So it'll be going to the Philippines, and we hope to make it in about 2 minutes, would we say, a minute?
Maybe, yeah. I'm probably chit-chat, so yeah.
Okay, well, let's see how it goes. Okay.
All right, okay, cool. Yeah, so as Anthony said, so this is Stellar Term. Somebody in the community made this. Basically, it's a front end for the Stellar Distributed Exchange. So it basically, it has these various markets you can trade in. So you can buy and sell these different tokens and fiat currencies. And what Anthony's going to show is so right now this thing has this balance. You can see 75 lumens. I think he's going to send some more, top it up, and then I can do.
Okay, so I've got my. There's how many mobile wallets are there now in Stellar?
I don't know, 4 or something.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
So this is the first one.
Yeah.
Called Cerberus, and so I've got instead of putting his address, I just use the
QR code.
QR code, and I'm sending 10,000
Lumens.
lumens, which is about how much right now?
I don't know.
About $40, something.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So I just hit send. Processing payment.
Come on, internet.
Come on, internet.
Okay.
Successful.
So it went. All right. So yeah. So you can see the balance went up here. So now we have 10,075. So in order to just kind of show an example of the distributed exchange, I'm going to go ahead and buy some Euro tokens. So here, first we have to trust the issuer. So this Tempo is the anchor for euros. So if you give Tempo euros, they put a Euro token into the network for you. So now we trust Tempo. That means we're willing to hold Tempo euros. So if I go back over here to market, and I want to trade this thing, so I just put in the amount of lumen I want to sell. So let's sell, I don't know, 300 lumen. Let's see what the depth is here. Yeah, fine. 300 lumen. Price, sorry. Yeah, no, I need to do this.
Can you magnify the screen a little bit?
Yeah. Wait, is it this? Yeah, is that better? Yeah.
Just talk through what you're doing.
Sure, yeah.
So what Jed's doing here, this has got a historical graph of every trade that's happened in the Stellar network. So instead of using SPV wallet, so who here knows what an SPV wallet is versus a full node? I guess a few people do. Okay, so with Stellar, the interesting thing is you don't need this concept of an SPV wallet. You can read directly from this thing called Horizon. And what this Stellar term does actually does, so it's a fully JavaScript app, and it's going and reading from the Stellar network these orders. So he's putting in an order right now, sort of like what you do on Poloniex or Kraken or another centralized exchange. And so, okay, so he's done an offer.
Right, so offer went. And so now if you go back here to your account, you can see now that, oh, wait, where is it? Oh, no. No, yeah, it's gone. Hold on. Sorry, the UI of this just changed, so it's a little weird. Placed it, I thought. Oh, sorry, it didn't cross. Hold on. Yeah. So that's over here. All right, fine, we'll put this. What? No, I want to sell. I'm selling lumens, so I'm buying euros. Yeah. All right. Wait, why is this? There's offers here.
You got to click on the other side.
I'm missing a 0. Oh, I am. Yeah. Okay. This order book is not thick. All right. Let's see. All right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right. Someone's getting a great deal. All right. Cool. So there it actually went. Yeah. Sorry, I was off by a 0. All right. So now you have 10 euros in your balance. So now, let's say you have a friend in the Philippines that you want to send some Filipino pesos to. So you can put, so this is going back to the payment addresses I was mentioning before. You can actually put any Filipino phone number, *coins.asia, and it'll get there. Or you can put an email. Since I don't know any Filipino phone numbers, I'm just going to put my email. *. Right, okay. Right, okay, cool. So, oh well. So I'm gonna send them lumens. Oh no, oh, he doesn't support, sorry. Stellar Term actually doesn't support converting between doesn't do path payments. So other wallets let you actually choose the asset you're sending, and the person can receive a different one, but the client actually has to support it, which they don't, unfortunately. But so just take my word for it. This should display either euros or lumens as the asset you can send, and then the asset they receive would be Filipino pesos, and then it goes to their basically CoinsPH sends you an email saying like, hey, you have pesos in your account, and you can go collect it. And that works with other wallets that support that. This is more of a trading client, so it doesn't support that functionality yet. But Centaurus does. Yeah, and some of the other ones do. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think that's it for the demo. Unless do you want to give any other demo? Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to talk a little bit
About which? But anyway, what I said up. Yeah, so the interesting thing about this, especially given like the new ICO phenomenon, is if you issue your asset in Stellar, then it's like immediately liquid in these markets, right? So you can kind of see there's some upcoming ICOs on Stellar. Here's this seed thing, this Mobi, which is I think ICOing in like the beginning of November, and as soon as they do their public sale, it will be listed here, and people can buy and sell it for these different assets. So they don't have to go and like try to convince Poloniex or Kraken to list them. It can be traded right here in this client. So expect as like the glut of these ICOs start happening, because there's like thousands of them, that these centralized exchanges are actually not going to be able to keep up, and so you'll need some decentralized exchange solution. And basically, so it happens that Stellar has this built into the network to support cross-border payments. So it works really well for tokens as well. So I think we'll see more and more of that over the next few months, which will be cool. I'm
just going to.
What do you want to show?
So while you're loading stuff,
Yeah.
so how do you manage to get like 100,000 transactions per second capabilities? Like nobody else is doing it.
No, not 100,000. I said hundreds of. Yeah, so we can probably get to about, it depends on the hardware it's running on, we can probably get to about 1,000. Yeah. Well, because it's just the architecture of the network is just very different than proof of work systems. So essentially, yeah, it's just basically you don't need the whole history of transactions in Stellar. You just need the current state of the database to know if something's valid or not. So So it just ends up being like much quicker. And just the way that we're structuring things, I think it's possible to get probably another order of magnitude out of it. We just haven't optimized it. But eventually we're going to have to do a similar thing to Bitcoin where we have like some Lightning Network or like, layer 2 kind of thing. Because if you want to do scale of the world, like I think Alipay does like 100,000 transactions a second or something insane. So we're never going to get to that. So I mean, that's the problem with decentralized things. They're inherently going to be a little less efficient than like a database. So you're going to have to do some layer 2 stuff to compensate, right? So. Yeah, but obviously that time is a little ways off for us. I mean, we can already do basically, I think Swift is like 300 transactions per second, and we can do that fine. And so once we get around there, we'll start thinking about other things.
As a solution, so let's say I want to use you instead of Ether, right? So Ether's got a whole system now where I can go to Ether and they got consultants and
Yep.
Dimitri's got like this whole team of coders. So how do I work with you guys? Let's say I want to work with you instead of Ether. Right?
Sure.
How do I do that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Ethereum has a much bigger ecosystem. I mean, I think they're kind of solving two pretty separate use cases. There's some things that are much better suited to be built on Ethereum. There's there's other things that are just much better suited for Stellar. So it depends on what you're actually trying to do. If you want to send payments or payments cross-border in particular, then Stellar is definitely the way to go because it has all this built-in primitives. Like I think there are decentralized exchanges that people are building in Ethereum, but they're always going to be way, way less efficient than issuing an asset on Stellar because it's a native thing, right? So.
But I'm saying, so how do I do this?
So.
Because I can just call,
Right.
like Dimitri just set up a thing, right? He's got a whole
Yeah.
Ether incubator.
Right. So
I
it.
can just call one of a dozen teams there and say, set me up on Ether. So how do I set up on Stellar?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, it's way more straight. Yeah. There's a bunch of consultants. You can call me. You can send me an email. Yeah. All right. Or talk to Anthony Barker. Yeah. Yeah. If it depends on your scale, you can talk to IBM or Deloitte. Both of them are like doing Stellar projects. There's a lot of other integrators that are doing it. Doing projects on Stellar is much simpler because we don't have we don't have the full smart contracting stuff that Ethereum does, which is good and bad. So if you want to do something very complicated, then yes, you probably need Ethereum. But for 90% of the stuff that you don't need that stuff for, it's just way, way simpler to do it on something like Stellar. So, yeah.
Okay.